Hi, everybody. Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah? Great. Welcome to our panel. My name is Galen Troyer. I work on the Risk and Resilience Tech Hub, which was designated in 2023 by the federal government as a regional engine for commercializing risk and resilience technologies. These are technologies that will make us safer and make us a global epicenter for what is really a $1 trillion market globally. And what we have done and how we won that was by building a fabulous coalition around our university research and the corporations that are already here, as well as a number of startups that we're going to uplift. So the outcomes are going to be incredible jobs supported by our workforce system that can get people enough money to live here in South Florida. That's really critical, right? We need really good jobs, and we are going to produce a number of those by supporting at least 50 startups in the clean cement or next generation concrete sector, and an additional hundreds of startups. Today, I am super excited to be joined by 3 of the leaders of the Tech Hub. We'll just start with Eric, and just introduce yourself and your title and where you're from.
So I'm Eric Kohler. I'm with Titan America. We operate across the eastern U.S. We have our largest plant here in South Florida, and we have our innovation hub here, and we're very happy to be part of the Tech Hub.
Emily?
Emily Gresham. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Economic Development at FIU.
Michael Berkowitz. I'm the Executive Director of the University of Miami's Climate Resilience Institute. And the Institute's mission is to connect all the work that happens at the university, looking at climate resilience in interdisciplinary ways, but also to connect that to communities on the front lines that need that innovation the most.
And Michael, we're just coming off of the Resilience 365 conference. That was a 2-day, very successful 2-day event that brought global resilience experts down to meet with local resilience experts. So we're constantly busy, honestly. Okay, but we're going to jump into it because we don't have a ton of time. My first question for you all is, what new collaborations between industry and university and between universities have been catalyzed by the Tech Hub? What are you working on to collaborate more?
Well, yeah, so I'll sort it out. So we started out the ideation of this Tech Hub, and what are we going to do that's uniquely South Florida? And we landed on resilient infrastructure as a critical need in an area where we can really differentiate here in South Florida. So it's something that we do as a building materials company. We're highly involved in this. And so we had a lot of leadership from the mayor's office, from other organizations in South Florida, like the Beacon Council, to really coalesce around this topic of resilient infrastructure. And so the universities have been doing a lot of work in that area over time. And so we really came together and we formed a very unique partnership. And I think what's different about the partnership here is it's really focused on commercialization. So we've done a lot of work with universities over the years. We've had a lot of PhD students that come through our lab. But really, this is taking high TRL, high technology readiness level, and taking it out and scaling it in the market here first in South Florida and then globally.
Yeah, I'd say the exciting part of Tech Hub in general, and Michael and I were talking about it earlier, is that you can actually feel that ecosystem start to come together around these risk and resilient technologies, and it's palpable. I mean, we were joking that we just met a year ago, and we've written like 3 or 4 grants with each other ever since. And for us at academia, so I'm also co-founder of Startup FIU, and Startup FIU is the innovation hub at FIU. So it's not just about startups, it's also about how do we get our technologies out the door. The best way to figure that out is working with industry. So partners like Titan America help us understand what are the problems they're trying to solve, but also what's the manufacturing process? How do we scale this? Who are the customers? And those are things that aren't always, are not usually, or not ever, in the back of academia's mind, right? And so that partnership's been really great. And being able to work with the University of Miami with some of the talent that they have, certainly in the faculty side, and marrying them with our faculty has been really exciting.
Yeah, I agree, and just to pick up on that, I think the Galen mentioned that we were funded at about to the tune of about $20 million as a hub. Most of that was around concrete. And so that's like one technology area, but that win has made the ecosystem thrive in some ways. And so Emily talked about like all of the various partnerships that have spun out of that, the different grants. I think having government, Miami-Dade in particular, but the other counties, the four county area has been really important. Obviously having FAU, Florida Atlantic, in the mix, and having those partners there already bought in and having those relationships, I think is going to yield dividends for years to come.
Well, and don't forget the startups, right? The startups that have been working with us are amazing. The work that we do with OnePrint has changed the way that we think about how to work with companies. So it's not always about big companies. Also figuring out how do we work with startups and help them scale.
And OnePrint is one of the startups we work with. They do 3D printing. They started 3D printing houses and on-land structures and then pivoted to coastal protection and have also been bringing some of those new techniques back on land. They're using IP from University of Miami, now collaborating with FIU, and they work at your innovation site, right?
Yes, that's correct. And so I think with corporate R&D, it's really changed dramatically. If you think back to the old days of Bell Labs and Xerox PARC to open innovation around the turn of the century and Procter & Gamble, and today corporate venture capital is a big part of our R&D as well as a lot of other companies. And so we have a lot of engagement with startup. It's a very productive way to do R&D, to bring new technology into our business, and then we help the company scale. We help the company, and then we participate in some of that success when they do go out and scale globally. And so the whole role of startups in corporate R&D is much greater. And so what we came up with some targets for the Tech Hub, and Emily was throwing out some of these really high numbers of how many startups we're going to help. And I first thought this is absurd, but now like it really makes sense. Like as we're getting in this, the number of startups, the interest that we're getting, the inbound is really phenomenal. And so it really aligns with kind of this new model of corporate innovation. And we're really happy to see the universities, organizations like Emily with Startup FIU that are really aligned with this. And so it's a unique, it's a very different time, I would say, today in corporate America as well as in academia.
And one of the things that we have very clear milestones and metrics that we need to deliver to the federal government, but also so we can be successful, really. And we set those out. So I would love it if you guys can talk a little bit about what you're doing now to get demonstration projects out and why those are so important. So I'll just say, we put out a call a few months ago. We had a really strong interest in projects to demonstrate technologies. The first 2 years of the hub is about demonstrating existing technologies that were developed in South Florida, and then the second 3 years are going to be about bringing in new startups, new technology, and helping to scale those. So we're getting our practice, we're getting it with these. And so we found a number of demo sites, and we're lining those up. There's a lot of things that have to line up at one. I think this is the challenge. There's so many issues. There's just issues of construction, number one, but then the permitting and the IP and how we handle all of this stuff. And so we're doing, it's a process to get all of these in place and get these done. But I think the joint collaboration is really going to be key to making these happen. And we can provide that difference in order to get these projects off the ground that would not have otherwise happened, where they would have just said, we're going to use conventional materials. We want to get this done fast. It's a lot of extra work to implement these new technologies. This is where we as the Tech Hub can step in and make it happen.
Yeah, so if you think about it's such an industry term, right? TRL level. So it's technology readiness level. You think about that spectrum. It's from 1 to 9. The very beginning, you're just trying to prove that your tech works. Then you're trying to repeat it, make sure it works. And then you kind of get to this middle where you're like, okay, it's working. I can scale it. I kind of understand it. I can repeat it. And then you get to the 6, 7 level. Once you get to that 6, 7 level, demonstrating it in real life is what's going to take it all the way to the end to commercialization. So we have 3 technologies that we're currently working with as a start, just the first 2 years. And the idea is we want to see how these technologies perform installed in real life. So the demonstration projects do that. And we're working, and the University of Miami, super flexible in terms of the testing. I love Prannoy. Prannoy is like my engineer partner. I talked to 3 people, like 3 men in my life. My husband, Bob Hacker, and Prannoy. That's just how it works. But the idea is, how do we get all the things to work just right? Construction, permitting, timing, measuring, testing. And we want to be able to do this so that we know the process, and then open it up for startups who want to test their own technologies.
Yeah, I think just picking up on that, I think one of the technology areas that we've been focusing on that touches the concrete work that these guys have been talking about is new generations of coastal protection infrastructure. Infrastructure that marries the gray and the green. OnePrint, you can see examples of that over in the UM booth called Sea Hives, which is a technology that came from UM as licensed by OnePrint. The problem with new and Sea Hive is both a gray solution, so concrete, but also has green features like mangroves, seagrass, and heat-tolerant corals. And the problem with that is this regulatory environment. As we know, our marine environment is regulated by a variety of regulatory agencies at the county, state, and federal level. And so finding ways to more quickly deploy some of this infrastructure has been a huge challenge. And the nice thing about the Tech Hub is it allows us to approach this not piecemeal, OnePrint, a poor startup going out there and trying to fight that battle, or even a single university, but rather, as a coalition and as a partnership and trying to address this through, a multi-stakeholder working group. So I think that might be another benefit of the hub in some ways.
I think that is actually the main benefit. And we're doing it regionally, right? We're in Miami, but we are working up from Monroe County up to Palm Beach County, people from Broward here. It's really key. There's some places where it's going to be easier to install. In Pompano Beach, there's already a place where it's easier to install coastal protections. And so you can get it there. And then in our more sensitive marine habitats, we can prove it's safe. And that concrete, this is the thing. You're innovating on the concrete to make it safe for those plants and for the people, right? It's not going to leach anything. I think that gets to the other question that I have, which is, what are the risks that we're looking at, right? This is all very rosy, but there are things that we're thinking about so we can be prepared. What are the risks that you see coming, and how are you preparing for that?
Yeah, I think with construction is just really hard as it is. There's so many things that have to align and come together. I'm stating the obvious here, but it's really hard to build things in this country. And so to add in the extra element of a new material, a new way of building it. And so I think having the county involved is really important there, because the county, they give the permits and they decide what gets built, and that's a big part of it. And so I think we talk a lot about the Florida standard. And so Florida has the strictest building codes in the country for hurricanes, where we lead the way on that. We set the Florida standard. I was at a conference recently in Las Vegas, and I go around the booths and I see Miami-Dade County everywhere. So, if you're Miami-Dade County certified, that's, if you can make it in Miami, you can make it anywhere. So, and companies use that. And so I think the credibility that Miami brings on permitting and being able to get, be able to solve these big challenges. We solved it with hurricanes. Now we have coastal resiliency, and to be a leadership on that and to help facilitate that process, make it a little bit easier to build. I think that will go a long ways, and we can do that. So we're really excited that the county is involved in this.
I think one of the biggest challenges is de-risking the investment, because for startups to get to the next side, there's a lot of investments, and investors are so used to software. So getting them to sort of understand that infrastructure and some of the work that we're looking to do has a longer return horizon, is one of the challenges that I think we are trying to think about. And so if you think about, it may not be cheaper, right, to use some of these new technologies, but it'll last longer. So wouldn't that be cheaper? And so how do we create those types of understandings in a way that they not that they believe per se, but that they can see? And so that's the next thing that I think I'm stressed about.
I would just say not cheaper, but more affordable, right? It has to be more affordable. We cannot get this stuff done and keep our community safe if we can't keep it affordable. But if you have something that was cheap and then you have to buy it again in 5 years, but you thought it was going to last 25, that is not affordable.
I would say, and I'm probably the macro guy on this panel, so, both in physical size, but also maybe in perspective. So two sort of macro risks. One is the changing shape of the federal government is obviously a macro risk. And so I think about that in two ways. One is, and I don't know if Rick Miller is still here, but finding new kinds of customers for this and new ways of talking about it. And Rick's from this South Florida Defense Alliance, another core partner of the Tech Hub. So finding new kinds of markets, I think, is certainly going to be important. The second is, it's not hard to imagine a world in the very near future where you have a drastically reduced NOAA, National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, and so on. So far, our hub has been mostly physical stuff, concrete, coastal defense, energy, material, and so on. But we have a lot of, climate and weather data, both data gathering and data analysis and modeling. I think incorporating some of that in is going to be really important. The other thing I would say is, as we know, we're only one hurricane season away from another Hurricane Andrew. And so that's both a risk, but also an opportunity. And thinking about how we as a hub pivot to both help that recovery and alleviate suffering, but also expand economic opportunity and resilience influence, I think is going to be a really important way to approach that risk.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that's true. We're looking and preparing for the next opportunities here, right? And I think I just want to get back a little bit to close this out because we just have a couple more minutes. But what are the things that you're excited to do in the next year? I think you may have already mentioned it, but it's always good to say it again, right? We've been working together about a year and a half, and we're now really getting into the action. What are a couple of things that we can leave with folks for this is what we're doing next year?
Yeah, so we mentioned the demo sites. That's going to be a big thing. But I'm really excited to go into the startups in the next phase because we've already gotten a lot of people that are contacting us. And once we open it up officially, it'll be even more. So really the startups doing things that we haven't even imagined yet. I'm really excited to see them.
I'm so excited to hear you say that. I think for me, what always keeps me excited is that Miami was already at the forefront of innovation since 1992 because of what happened to this community. The federal government was there, was not there for all of it, for the rebuilding. Who was there? We locally, we were there. Our government, our universities, our industry, we all came together to create these better codes, these better materials, this new innovation. And to me, the sky's the limit. Let's not wait for a disaster to create the opportunity. And so I think that's what I'm excited about.
I would say, and the thing I'm excited about is to find new financing and economic ways to better value low carbon cement, concrete, to better value gray-green infrastructure and to find ways to fund and finance that. And that's innovation in and of itself in some ways.
I've never met anyone more excited about innovation, finance, and insurance than this guy. But you know what? If we solve that, that's how we scale this.
Yep.
So I'm with him.
It's so good. The startups, making sure we can pay for them, And that's where the data comes in too. This is why we need the university and the private sector collaboration, because you can't have the private sector confirming what they're selling. You need someone else who can make sure that it's working, and then you can pay, because it's going to pay you back in the future. I really appreciate the time with you all. And thank you, Michael, Emily, and Eric. If you have questions or would like to join the Risk and Resilience Tech Hub, we have monthly calls the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday of the month from 3 to 4, and they're open. You're welcome to join. Go look for Risk and Resilience Tech Hub online. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.